The man accused in one of Houston's most haunting cold cases is dead tonight.
Investigators say that 64-year-old Floyd William Parrott took his own life in custody in Nebraska just weeks after he was charged in the 1990 Lover's Lane murders of Cheryl Henry and Andy Atkinson.
Records show he was arrested 3 times for impersonating a police officer, twice before the Lover's Lane double murder and once after the grisly crime.
He spent 35 years thinking he got away with it. And for a long time, he was right. The case had gone cold. The leads had dried up. Over 100 potential suspects had been cleared. And the man who tied 2 young people to trees and cut their throats in the dark of a Houston night had simply walked away. Lived a normal life, moved across state lines, grew old. And then, just weeks ago, 36 years after the night Cheryl Henry and Andy Atkinson never came home, Floyd William Parrott was finally arrested. The families cried. The prosecutors made statements. Justice, it seemed, had finally arrived. And then, he killed himself in a jail cell, before a single day of trial. Now here's the part that changes everything about this case. Floyd William Parrott had been arrested for impersonating a police officer before the murders. Twice. The courts knew his name. His fingerprints were in the system. He had a badge in his car that didn't belong to him and a driver's license with someone else's name on it. And Cheryl and Andy still ended up dead. How does that happen? Andy's father gave one interview where he described what he believed happened to his son that night, what Andy was forced to hear, tied to that tree, unable to move. And I genuinely want to know your reaction to that detail when we get there, because it stopped me cold when I first read it. So stay close, because we're getting there. August 22nd, 1990, Houston, Texas. Cheryl Henry was 22 years old. Blonde, described by everyone who knew her as bubbly and warm. Her younger sister Shane later said Cheryl was her best friend, that they did everything together. Andy Atkinson was 21. Piercing green eyes, Hollywood smile, the kind of person people remembered the moment they met him. His girlfriend thought he was amazing inside and out, great smile, but better mind. They had only been dating a few weeks. That night, Cheryl and her sister met Andy at Bayou Mama's nightclub on Westheimer at South Gessner. Just a normal Thursday night out. Drinks, music, easy conversation. The kind of evening that feels unremarkable while you're in it. Cheryl's sister left early. Cheryl and Andy stayed. At some point after that, the two of them drove to a then remote stretch of West Houston near Enclave Parkway and Eldridge Parkway, a secluded cul-de-sac the locals had long called Lover's Lane. Undeveloped land, no streetlights, no patrol cars logged in the area that night, no one around to see anything. Sometime between the end of that evening and the start of the next morning, someone was already there, waiting. When Cheryl didn't show up for work the next day, her family called Houston police. And that same morning, August 23rd, a security guard on routine patrol near the 1300 block of Enclave Parkway noticed something that made him slow down. A white Honda Civic parked at the end of the cul-de-sac. It hadn't moved in hours. He approached. Through the window, he spotted a purse on the passenger side floorboard. Inside the purse, a driver's license. The name on it was Cheryl Henry. He called her family. Her family told him she'd already been reported missing. He called police. What investigators found when they arrived would stay with the Houston Police Department for the next 36 years. Cheryl's body wasn't in the car. She was found in a nearby wooded area, hidden underneath a pile of wooden boards, placed there deliberately, concealed. A $20 bill was lying nearby on the ground, and Andy wasn't with her. He was found 150 to 200 yards away, tied to a tree. Both of them had their hands bound behind their backs. Both had their throats cut with a knife. And the medical examiner confirmed what investigators already feared: Cheryl had been sexually assaulted. But there's one detail about that crime scene that even people who followed this case for years sometimes miss. The killer had taken Andy's golf balls and a golf club from the car and arranged them on the ground like a trail, pointing directly toward where Cheryl's body was hidden under those boards. HPD detective Darcus Shorten worked this case for years. She called that detail very odd. That's the quote from a seasoned homicide detective, very odd.
The bodies were left along the southern tree lawn. This case now belongs to HPD detective Darcus Shorten.
Using a knife shows that it's personal to me.
As does hiding Cheryl's body underneath some wooden boards. Then Andy's golf balls and clubs that had been in the trunk of his car were lined up pointing to Cheryl's body.
I'm concealing it, but not enough that you cannot find her. In other words, I want them to be found.
Think about what that means. This wasn't chaos. This wasn't someone panicking and running. Whoever did this bound two people, separated them by nearly 200 yards, concealed one body under wooden boards, left a $20 bill next to her, and then arranged physical objects from the car like some kind of message. That takes time. That takes calm. That is not a person who expected to get caught. And now we get to the detail that Andy's father spoke about publicly. The one I mentioned at the start. Garland Atkinson, Sr., believed, based on what investigators told the family about the positioning of the bodies and the timeline of the wounds, that Andy was tied to that tree while Cheryl was still alive. That he was close enough to hear what was happening to her. That he couldn't move, couldn't help, couldn't do anything. Which means he was tied to a tree and listened to her scream. Garland Atkinson, Sr. said in an interview. Listened to her being murdered, knowing that they were going to do the same thing to him, and he couldn't do anything about it. That's hard to accept. That sentence. Read it again. That's a father describing what his 21-year-old son experienced in the last moments of his life. And somewhere out there that night, a 28-year-old man named Floyd William Parrott was already planning exactly how he was going to walk away from it. A lot of people think they know this case. But I genuinely want to know, had you heard that detail about Andy before today? Tell me in the comments, because the responses to that one detail alone tell you everything about why this case stayed in people's minds for 36 years. Now, let's talk about Floyd William Parrott. Because here's where the story stops being just a cold case and starts being something else entirely. Something that raises questions not just about one man, but about a system that kept handing him back his freedom. Parrott was 28 years old in the summer of 1990. 6 feet tall, 185 pounds, brown hair, mustache. He had lived in the Houston area most of his life. And at the time of the murders, according to the criminal complaint filed in Harris County, he was working approximately 1 mile from where Cheryl and Andy's bodies were found. 1 mile. But that's not the part that keeps investigators up at night. This is...
In 1988 records show, Floyd William Parrott pretended he was a sergeant with the Department of Defense and was driving a car displaying emergency equipment. Parrott received 1-year probation, violated the terms, and got 9 months in jail.
In December of that same year, he was arrested again, this time for carrying a concealed weapon, specifically a blue steel revolver. He was convicted. He served 45 days. And then here's the part that matters, that blue steel revolver was returned to him. By the courts. They gave it back.
And in July 1990, just 5 weeks before the Lovers Lane murders, he was arrested on 2 counts of impersonating a cop, claiming he was a deputy constable for Precinct 4 and Precinct 5. Parrott made bond and was back out on the street. And exactly 1 week after the Lovers Lane murders, he pleaded guilty in that case and got a 2-year prison sentence. The pattern continued in 1996. Parrott, in a car with emergency lights, pulled over a driver for supposed expired plates and demanded $100 cash to let him go. Searches of Parrott's car and home later turned up numerous police-related items, including counterfeit IDs and badges for several law enforcement agencies.
He told at least one woman he was working as a security guard. He had the equipment. He had the confidence. He knew exactly how to sound legitimate. He was arrested, charged, and released on bond. Which means that on the night of August 22nd, when Cheryl Henry and Andy Atkinson drove to that remote cul-de-sac in West Houston, Floyd William Parrott was out on bond for impersonating a police officer. He was a free man. And he had been practicing because just 2 months before the murders in June of 1990, a woman in North Harris County was sexually assaulted. She later told police her attacker's physical description. The details matched Parrott. She said he had approached her with the manner and authority of someone in law enforcement. She had no idea who he was. Her DNA evidence sat in a case file for 17 years. Because in 1990, DNA testing was still expensive, still slow, still far from routine. The technology that would eventually unravel everything Parrott had built his freedom on simply didn't exist yet in a way that investigators could use in real time. So he walked. Again, this was a man who had built an entire infrastructure around one idea: control through authority. And also, in 1996, that same year, Parrott was identified as a suspect in another sexual assault case. The victim gave a physical description. Investigators gathered his DNA. A Harris County grand jury declined to indict him. The DNA sample was collected, filed, and not uploaded to the national database for years. That decision, that administrative gap, is the reason this case stayed cold until 2025. Here's how it finally broke open. In late 2025, a Houston Police Department cold case homicide sergeant received a tip, a name. The tip named Floyd William Parrott as a possible suspect in the Lovers Lane murders. The sergeant pulled the name, found the 1996 sexual assault report where Parrott was the named suspect, reviewed the DNA that had been gathered from that case, and uploaded it to CODIS, the FBI's national DNA database, which cross-references profiles across local, state, and federal labs. The system returned a match almost immediately. The male DNA profile from the 1996 assault, the one Parrott had claimed was consensual matched DNA recovered from swabs taken during Cheryl Henry's sexual assault examination at her autopsy. That was the first hit. But then investigators looked deeper, and they found a second CODIS match, the same DNA profile tied to the June 1990 sexual assault. The exotic dancer who had been attacked 2 months before Cheryl and Andy. The woman who gave a physical description that matched Parrott to a T, but whose case had never been connected to his name. 3 crimes, 1 DNA profile, 1 man. And he had been out there the whole time. On March 25th, 2026, officers from the Houston Police Department and the FBI arrested Floyd William Parrott in Lincoln, Nebraska. He was 64 years old. When detectives interviewed him that same day, he denied ever knowing Cheryl Henry. He was charged with capital murder. The families were called.
Today is the day we waited for with a heavy heart. Our sister was taken from our family in a way that no one should ever experience. She was more than a victim in a headline. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, and a person who brought much love and light into our eyes. Hearing that the person responsible has finally been caught doesn't bring her back. And it doesn't erase the pain our family has lived with all these years. But it does bring a sense of relief knowing that justice is moving forward and that this person cannot hurt another person again.
On the morning of April 28th, 2026, 2 days before his scheduled court appearance, medical personnel were called to the Lancaster County Jail around 7 a.m. in the morning. Floyd William Parrott was found unresponsive in his cell. Correctional staff administered life-saving measures. Paramedics arrived. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Harris County District Attorney Sean Thierry confirmed it appeared to be a suicide. 36 years of cold case work, hundreds of investigative hours, a DNA breakthrough that took decades to arrive, families who never stopped pushing, prosecutors who described this as one of Houston's most haunting cold cases. And in the end, no trial, no testimony, no moment where Cheryl's sisters or Andy's parents sat across a courtroom from the man who destroyed their families and watched a jury deliver a verdict. He took that from them too. But here's what the DA's office said in the statement they released after his death, and I want you to hear this part carefully. Since Parrott's arrest, we can confirm new survivors have come forward, bravely reliving the horrors he inflicted in painful detail. New survivors. Plural. Which means the women who came forward after his arrest, women who had been waiting, some of them for decades, to see his face in a headline and finally understand what had happened to them, they came forward. They identified him. They told their stories. And the DA's office also confirmed this. They are currently in Louisiana, right now, investigating a cold case they believe is linked to Floyd William Parrott. Which means the full scope of what this man did may still not be known. Prosecutor Samantha Knecht, who had worked this specific case for more than a decade, said it plainly. Floyd William Parrott thought he could outrun the truth. He thought time would erase his past. It didn't. It just took longer than it should have. There's a question that has circled this case since the moment investigators started piecing it together. How did a man who was arrested for impersonating police officers twice before the murders, once after, never become a suspect? Over 100 people were looked at in the years following August 23rd. DNA from at least 25 of them was tested and cleared. In 2001, someone sent a letter to HPD promising information for $100,000, and it turned out to be nothing. Floyd William Parrott was never on the list. Not once. The FBI's own profile said the suspect likely had above-average intelligence, was a low achiever, may have been known to police, may have been interviewed by investigators at some point without raising flags. Every single one of those things described Parrott. And he wasn't on the list. Cheryl Henry's sister Meredith said something in a 2013 interview that I keep coming back to. She said Cheryl thought Andy was amazing inside and out. Great smile, but his mind was wonderful too. That's how she was remembered. Not for what happened to her, but for the way she saw the people she loved. She was 22 years old. He was 21. They had only been dating a few weeks. And somewhere in the files of the Harris County DA's office, and in the ongoing investigation now unfolding in Louisiana, the full picture of what Floyd William Parrott actually was is still being assembled. He died before a jury could hear it. But the investigators didn't stop. They are still working. And that after 36 years matters more than the ending he chose for himself. If you've made it this far, you already know why this case is different. It's not just the crime. It's the years. The near misses. The DNA that sat in a file untouched while families spent every August 22nd wondering if anyone was still looking. Someone always was. If you want to see more cases like this, the ones that took decades, the ones that turned on a single thread, investigators refused to let go, you know what to do. The algorithm needs a signal from you to keep putting this in front of people who'd actually care about it. A share costs you nothing, and it might just reach someone who has information on a case that's still open. Cheryl Henry, Andy Atkinson. Say their names.